Have you ever heard of a TV show called Heroes of Cosplay? It's pretty much a show where people compete in cosplay competitions at conventions. They showed their process of how they made their cosplay along with the struggles and challenges. I remember this one cosplayer, Yanya Hans. She was making a costume of the whipped cream from a video game called Alice Returns to Madness. I remember doing digging into the game because I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I always loved the story of Alice in Wonderland, so I thought it was a fun twist on the story. When October rolled around, I was trying to decide on what I wanted to be for Halloween. And I don't care how old you are, but you're never too old to dress up for Halloween. When I was watching this show, it finally hit me on who I wanted to be. And I figured since I always made clothes for my dolls when I was younger, I could make costumes for myself. It can't be any different, it's just making them bigger, right? I never made a costume before, so I figured it would be easier for me to just make the outfit based off the Disney version of Alice, since it doesn't have a ton of details. I was also short on funds, so I used whatever I can get my hands on, and that was a big bag of scrap fabric, which was just a bunch of old clothes my family didn't want anymore. However, when I searched the bag, I didn't have the right fabric for my project, so I went through my great-grandma's big hall closet filled with towels and old bed sheets. And I found the right light blue sheets that would work for Alice. Before I cut the fabric, I did research on how to make a dress because once I cut the fabric, there was definitely no going back. Which honestly, in reality, it wasn't too much research because I freehanded a lot of things, which I probably shouldn't. If you're a cosplayer yourself, then you know how long and hard it can be to make a cosplay. Although back then, I didn't call it cosplay, I just called it a Halloween costume. Now that I have all the fabric I needed, there's only one thing left to do, and that is sew it all together. However, there is something I'm missing, and that is a sewing machine. My family did have a sewing machine, but they didn't want me to use it because, for one, I didn't know how, and they also didn't want me to repeat the same mistake that one of them had made, which was accidentally stabbing their finger. So my only option was to sew it by hand. So every day for like a whole month, I would come home, do my homework, and sew till I had to go to bed. Which honestly seems like a lot of tedious work, but I had a lot of fun because sewing was one of my favorite things to do. I think the hardest thing for me was making the puffy sleeves, but I was able to pull through and make them. When I had all the main pieces sewed together, I realized that it couldn't be a slip-on dress and that I needed to put in a zipper. So I found an old jacket and ripped out the zipper, which took quite a bit because the seam ripper I had was pretty dull, and so it took a long time. And when I added the zipper to the dress, and honestly, it didn't really match because it was a dark gray against a light blue. And it stuck out like a sore thumb, honestly. At that point, it might as well have been a Frankenstein dress with how much different fabrics I put together for it. But when I was completely done with it, in my eyes, it was perfect, even if I didn't put hemming on it. When Halloween rolled around, the only thing I was missing was a blonde wig, and I didn't have one, so I went with my own hair, which is the complete opposite of Alice, which is dark brown. After I went trick-or-treating, and yes, I still went trick-or-treating even when I was in high school, I don't care. When I came home, I helped pass out candy to the younger kids, and we honestly got a lot of kids through my neighborhood. And I remember these two boys who were probably around the same age as me, and they asked me if I was dressed up as Alice from, wouldn't you guessed it, Alice Returns to Madness. Honestly, I totally didn't think about it in that way since I hadn't seen too much of the game besides from the show, and I was kind of surprised that someone asked me if I was from Alice Returns to Madness instead of the more well-known Alice in Wonderland, which makes sense because I wasn't able to get a blonde wig for the costume. And the Alice from Returns to Madness has brown hair. And now we're coming towards the end of the video. I thought about adding another costume I made, but I want to save that one for another time because that one is very special to me. I want to thank you guys so much for all the support that you have been giving me throughout my whole YouTube channel. It means the world to me. That's pretty much it for me. Bye-bye!